Welcome, everyone. Sarah and I are thrilled to share our knowledge and have this opportunity. So if there's anyone participating who is familiar with the concept of doing more with less, or anyone who has clients who want their project yesterday and not 18 months from now, and anyone whose clients want visibility into project schedule and project budget that they don't have, and so they're pounding you with questions, great, you're in the right place this afternoon. Okay, so this is just, this slide is really easy. We're going to describe very briefly who we are and what we do, go over why we needed to modernize, and our paths to modernization. Okay, so this slide, Public Works has a team of 100 people located across the entire 46,000 square miles of Pennsylvania. To manage capital planning, master planning for all our 13 agencies. We manage the design, the electronic now bidding, and award of construction contracts. And we manage the construction of all vertical construction for our state agencies under the governor's jurisdiction. Our projects are funded by 30-year bonds, and we average at any given time in our portfolio, either in design or construction, 1.5, right now we're at $1.9 billion. And just to give you an idea, we review and approve approximately $40 million a month in invoices. The map that you're seeing right here, for those of you that know, Penn State is located right smack in the middle of the state. That's one of our clients. Pitt is down in Pittsburgh. We have Temple. The black emblems there are state police. The yellow shapes are the 27 state correctional facilities. We have trees, we do forests, we do high hazard dams, we do historical markers. We do a lot, as I said, across the entire state. I apologize for laughing. I've seen this slide. I hate this slide. This is those 6 pictures sort of encapsulate where we were, and it may be where you are now. And there's hope that you don't have to stay there. In Pennsylvania, every project we have, we use the Separations Act, which means we have to do 4 prime contracts for every single project. So we have general, electrical, plumbing, and mechanical prime contracts separated into 4 primes. We have an outside design professional, so we have at least 5 submissions during the design process on every project. So those rolls of paper that you see there are design submissions, and once we have, went from the first design submission to the second design submission in a project, we never threw out anything because our retention policy at the time was 99 years. So the Public Works that used to be would generate every piece of paper that we generated, be it a spec or a drawing or an email or just a conversation, a job conference minute, everything we did, we had to retain for 99 years and distribute it to 8 different entities. So we had 4 primes, the design contractor, the client agency, Harrisburg in the field, or DGS in the field, and DGS in Harrisburg for every piece of paper for 99 years. So that bottom left there is our records retention. And that's a portion of our state building that does nothing but retain state paper, literally. And we're paying $15,000 a year to store pieces of paper that have not seen the light of day for 20 or 30 years. We were also storing drawings for buildings that have been torn down. So as recently as 2014, we had blueprints in our files. We were working with onion skins, and we had the sum total of 3 cell phones within the deputate to run the $1 billion portfolio that we were working through. Sarah will get to this in more detail, but essentially we were a siloed, paper-centric, reactive organization spread out across the entire state using snail mail and fax machines. That's not where we wanted to be. Fiscally and technology, that's where we were. That we were so twisted that we couldn't pay any attention or even ask for customer feedback because we were spending all our time literally trying to keep our heads above water.
This is Sarah. So I'm going to just talk through some of the factors that led to our modernization. So as we were deciding, hey, we need to do something different, this is not where we want to be, I had the opportunity to work with the Public Works team, and one of the first things I recognized was that staff was spending a lot of their day trying to figure out just where things were. Was this paid yet? Has this been approved? And so they were trying to track down all this information because there was no centralized source of data, that single source of truth. So our fiscal data, our construction team couldn't see. They had to get somebody in our fiscal office on the phone to find out how much money do I have left. Can I entertain this change order or not? There was, everybody's project documents were in their own file folder or on their desk waiting to be, signed in ink. So just the amount of effort that went into trying to find the current status of something or trying to find the current information just really, was a frustration for the team because they couldn't get enough time in their day to do the important things that they really needed and wanted to do. So with everybody kind of just struggling to find the information that they needed, there was a general lack of coordination across the team. And, this was because of the multiple software systems and paper records. They had 5 different IT systems that were being used to track different things. But of course, sometimes the information in one IT system didn't match up with the information in another one, and then you're left wondering, okay, which one's the correct information? And the communication between different divisions and groups within the Public Works team was really siloed. We found ourselves kind of getting into trouble on certain projects because we were making assumptions about our budget versus really understanding what our actual remaining balances were. And again, just the inconsistent documents and just trying to validate what is the correct information was very frustrating for the team, and was leading to poor decisions on projects. And then to make matters worse, our customers were getting unhappy because the time it took us to complete a project was just it was just taking too long. So as Liz mentioned, we do kind of the cradle to grave of a project. We managed the design process. We had, at the time, a paper bidding process because we are a public entity. There's a public-facing component for how we have to do our bidding and our bid openings. So we had that factored in, and then our construction times. And just altogether, our clients were frustrated that we couldn't execute our projects faster. And culturally, one of the things I observed related to this was, there wasn't an ownership amongst the team to improve this. It was always another team's fault or kind of pointing blame at another part in the process. And so, as a management team, we didn't really have any data or any information to help hold the team accountable. So that was, something that we wanted to change culturally as well. And on top of this, Public Works was facing, several consecutive years of decreasing staff. So our project list was getting larger, and the number of staff we had to do that project list was growing smaller. So, morale was suffering as well from personnel cuts, retirements that were not backfilled, and staff assuming multiple roles. Maybe at a drop of a hat, somebody's leaving, somebody's got to pick up this work. And so they're trying to do the best they can, but they're really just, doing what the person before them did. They weren't really kind of questioning the task. What is the value of this? Is there a better way to do this? That just wasn't part of the culture and the thinking at the time. So in a summary view, as Liz mentioned, the typical portfolio value of the public works projects is about $1.5 billion. The operating budget for public works, so that's all of our staff salaries, our cars, cell phones, I mean, that's all in. Their budget to manage those projects is $15 million. So I'm sure you all can do the math. That's like 1 cent in overhead for every dollar in our project expenses. And, as a state agency, we're certainly not getting a larger budget to be able to manage our portfolio. And, it really became very clear that, we couldn't continue to exist this way. We cannot make this type of financial model feasible, doing things the way that we've always done them, and just continuing to try to stay afloat. So that essentially is what led to our modernization. And Liz is going to tell you about the 3 paths of modernization.
So this slide, there were 3 concurrent paths. When we decided to do this, we decided to go big or go home. It didn't make any sense. We were smart enough at the very beginning to realize that we couldn't buy software and make this all fixed. We had to completely consider the entire entity. We couldn't buy our way out of this. So one of the first things we did was we sat down and decided, okay, we're going to look at our projects. What is it that we do? What's in our portfolio? What's our sweet spot? Why do we want to get out of bed in the morning and come to work? So that was a critical process. The process of how we do our projects, and Sarah was leading the path on that, and she took the lead. And literally, we took our subject matter experts. So senior management at this point had very little to do with the day-to-day decisions. Sarah sat down with our SMEs. So we brought people in from the field for construction. We had our bidding experts. We had our design people, and we mapped every single step of every single process. And it was a huge undertaking because we had at the time, over 50 processes with 40, 50 steps in each process. But before we could begin down the path, we had to map the baseline. And out of that, we knew we had to create new lean processes, because one of the guiding lights from my boss, Secretary Topper, was that we are not going to modernize bad processes. So this process map, or the process procedure, was probably the most time-consuming and the highest mountain to climb, but it also, as you'll see in a couple of minutes, serves as the baseline for a large part of the success of what we did. And the third concurrent path was the people. Who is going to help us do these processes, and how are we going to restructure the organizational chart so that we get away from the siloed handing off the baton to the next person in line with no involvement, or, as Sarah pointed out, no responsibility for what comes after I touch it. So one of the things we knew, and it was a big challenge, and we continue to work with it, is to create proactive, empowered decision makers, which is not 4 words that you usually hear when you are describing state employees. But that's what we wanted to do, and that's how we set ourselves up for success. This is a timeline, just because, it didn't happen overnight. We started this back in 2014, trying to figure out what we were doing, and literally step by step in every process map. We had our first town hall, and by that, we, as part of our change management approach to this, we did hire a change management consultant who was, he helped us with the people part of this. He also drove the communication part of it, although he wasn't actually in front of anything. He was organizing in the background. So we had town halls with our own people. We had it with our agencies. And one of the things, lessons learned, is we did not engage the contracting and design community at this point in time in 2015. We made a decision that we wanted to focus on ourselves before we invited all of our clients in. In hindsight, we probably should have done a little more, at least in the beginning, to engage them earlier. 2016, the calendar year, we spent a lot of time. We got eBuilder on site. We were having our personnel right fit discussions, and by that, we had everybody in Public Works, and we can get to it in a little bit, but we sat down and decided whether or not what they were doing and who was doing it was the right fit for both the organization and the individual people. April and May, we started testing. We had iPhone. We gave everybody an iPhone, so we had gone from using fax machines to iPhones, and there were a lot of fun stories with how we took our folks, especially the ones in the field, and introduced them to the wonders of an iPhone. And that was fun. They started getting their laptops, so the hardware was deployed before the software was in place, just to familiarize themselves with the tools of what their new jobs would entail. Again, we would bring everybody in as a group, especially in construction, 30, 40 people at a time, give them their laptops, and literally we started with how you turn on a laptop. Our average age in Public Works is over 50. So you can imagine, or maybe you live it every day, the technology was new and exciting to them, and some of them were scared of it. And when we broke it down into simple steps and did it as a group, it was remarkably successful. And we saw that was one of the first really evident, they accepted it very well. One of the surprising parts to me was that the construction personnel out from the field embraced the iPhones and the laptops much quicker than the architects and the engineers. But we enjoyed it. It's still going. We are now the best agency across the entire Commonwealth with Skype meetings. Most of the people that we deal with have no idea. Our client agencies, we are encouraging and coaching them on the wonders of Skype. And in 2017, we flipped everything, all of our existing projects into eBuilder. So as of May, everything was in eBuilder completely, both fiscally from a design standpoint and most of construction. So the project path, we imploded that chimney, which was a lot of fun. We had at the time two different types of projects. Capital projects, which are funded by bonds, are $300,000 and over, and agency projects, which is funded from general government obligation, couldn't exceed $300,000. And one of the things we found out during our self-evaluation was that our team was spending 80% of our time on the agency projects, which represented 10% of our portfolio. So one of the first decisions, critical milestones decisions we made was we get out of bed in the morning and come in and do capital projects. We don't want to do a $15,000 bathroom renovation. The agencies are in a much better place to own and manage and pay for that. We decided to delegate all our agency projects back to the agencies using a program we refer to as job order contracting, so we've set up our agencies to have the ability to have an on-call design build contractor, because DGS Public Works bid the projects, so they are on-call state contracts separated into the 4 primes. So the agencies now own those. We originally anticipated $8 million a year in job contracts. In the first year alone, we issued $42 million in job order contracts. So I'm not sure exactly where that money came from, but our agencies are very happy now, because instead of waiting 2 years for DGS Public Works to design it with our in-house designers, they can now call and have a job order contractor on their site within 2 weeks. The Public Works, we kept the capital projects. We created one of the things we did that never existed before was a 3-year master plan for each of the agencies. So every year annually before we did this, there was this feeding frenzy for amongst the agencies for every dollar in capital projects that we would release. And it was chaos. And one of the things we decided to do with our Office of the Budget is, okay, we're going to create a master plan within each agency. So the agencies own their prioritized projects. So on an Excel spreadsheet, top to bottom, they tell us what their priorities are. And then DGS takes that and works with the budget office to see what funds are available. So we push projects horizontally until it lines up at the bottom of this Excel spreadsheet with the approved PIP spend for that year. So it sounds cumbersome, and it is to a certain degree, but it really works. The agencies love it because they know that they own those priorities, and they have complete buy-in now on the master plan. And if you're ever on our DGS website, we post that master plan every year so our designers and our contractors can see what's coming, and they can allocate their manpower to projects that they really are interested in doing. So the process path, the keywords there are every and SME. So every process got analyzed, and the subject matter experts sat down with Sarah and the eBuilder team. Senior management was not in the room at the time. We had no need to be in the room, and it helped us a great deal in getting people to buy into the process, because it wasn't senior management dictating how things should be. It was the subject matter experts, being design or construction, who have the expertise to know how a process should work. And they were empowered, so this is one of those empowerment tools to question everything. And they did a fantastic job with that, as did eBuilder, in creating our newer, leaner processes. So we adopted the lean approach: easier, better, faster, cheaper, in that order for our clients, designers, and contractors. Because sometimes what's good for the design professional is not good for the design agency. So we created these new processes. We did solicit, as part of the process, we had client agencies assisting the SMEs, and out of that came newer, leaner processes in eBuilder. The people path, this is our new organized, it's broken down, but essentially before we had engineering and architecture, which was design, and then there was a siloed approach. Change orders were actually not approved by construction. They were approved by another bureau, which it made sense in theory when they created it the old way, that everything that touched every project was in a central silo, and then it was chaos. Anyway, so one of the things we did was we created a new organizational chart, and we broke things down into pre-construction or construction, because that's where everything falls. Fiscal blends and spans both of them. In the upper right-hand corner, you see our JOC program. That's an isolated person, because everybody in Public Works, other than that one person, our salaries are paid out of the bonds for construction. The JOC coordinator, because he's not in the PIPs, his salary is not. He is paid out of our DGO budget. So that's incredibly important. The capital planning is yellow because it was brand new. We created a whole organization within the organization to help and assist the agencies in creating their capital plan. We now have electronic bidding and award, which resides within pre-construction. So after the bid tab is created and the project goes through the fiscal office for funding, it's now sent over to construction. One of the things that we did is we coached our team that this is the flipped organization, and the agencies and the customers are on top. So our assistant project managers and our design managers are the level of involvement that work directly with the clients. So that's how our organization literally works. And the further you get down from the top, the less direct client agency involvement there is. The people on the capital construction, so the directors of those bureaus and myself as a deputy, we manage personnel, and the people up top actually manage the project. So that was a change. One of the things we I guess discovered in the empowerment is that if you give them the opportunity, because they were scared to death, some of these guys in construction are now signing change orders, and they were reluctant at best to be able to do that, but it's working out really well, and they're now to the point where they really love not having to ask. They are running with it, and eBuilder in our reporting dialogue shows us that the APMs are actually the best in the organization at making decisions and managing their projects, which was a surprise to us, but it's a good one. So now Sarah gets the fun part of talking about results.
Thanks, Liz. So as you'll see on the slides, our piles and piles of papers are no more. So our filing cabinets have been emptied out. We've been able to take some of the space that was previously dedicated to high density file storage and turn it into conference rooms and collaboration space. Our team has laptops now and their iPhones. They're comfortable taking those devices to meetings. Liz talked about using Skype and being comfortable with video conferencing, and are among leaders in our department of using technology. And Liz is laughing at me right now. So they're just doing amazing things with adopting technology and using it to its full capacity. So we wanted to show you some of the results from our different processes. So before, our bidding process took us 79 steps to issue the bids, receive them, and then award the construction teams that would be doing those projects. And now we're down to 21 steps to do the same activities. In addition to reducing our number of steps, we were able to save our contractors money. Before, when we were doing paper bidding, they would, have to overnight FedEx their documents in. So, they're no longer paying for those FedEx fees, in that they're, uploading their bid information into eBuilder. They're not, before we have a requirement to do a public bid opening, so our bid opening has to be available to anyone in the public who may want to attend. So folks were traveling in from across the state to Harrisburg to sit and attend this bid opening, basically watch people open envelopes and read what the bids were. And so we've moved that to a web conference platform so that when we open our bids electronically in eBuilder, they can immediately see what the numbers are, and they can do that from the comfort of their own office, wherever that may be. And in terms of our own staff and freeing up their time to do more important work, to do that paper bid opening process and to compile those bid results and get those awards ready, that was taking basically 3 people about 3 days to do. So we've estimated that every project that we bid, we save about $1,800 in staff time from how we did it before to how we do it now. And our client agencies are also very excited about our electronic bidding process, because they're able to know on bid opening day what the project costs are, and we can do better planning knowing that information sooner. So this is just another view of our bidding example. So before, it was taking us 44 days, so we've been able to cut that in half. So we're very excited about that. And we're using the reporting capabilities that we have now to continue to lean our process, to, in the example of bidding, to make sure that we have the funding available in case our bids come back different than we may have expected, that we can get a jump on making any funding changes that we need to be able to make that award. And we can also look at different trends or factors that may be impacting our timelines, and then we can focus in on addressing those. So just another example from construction. Pre-modernization, it was taking us about 72 days to approve a change order. With the changes that we made in our process and empowering our staff, we're now down to just a couple days, so 7 in July, we need to update our graph, but we're continuing to see progress in that. We're continuing to see our team embrace that culture change of empowered decision making. And in our change order process, in particular, we were able to use dollar thresholds so that, things that did need to be elevated for different reviews, larger change orders, that we still felt confident that, the right people were seeing those and that we were making good decisions about, to approve that expenditure or not. And, one of the other kind of key points about our results and about showing this data to you, this type of reporting is something that we never had before. So we are, we feel like we're just kind of getting into it and just really starting to take advantage of the reporting and the visibility into our data to kind of identify and address issues quickly. And, we're also able to use our data to manage, accountability across the teams and across stakeholders. So not only within our staff internally, but also with our clients. If they're not getting back to us, if they're not, making timely decisions, we can kind of intervene and ask, how can we help you do that? Or if we have certain chronic issues with our vendor community, we can get ahead of that as well. So I'm going to turn it back to Liz, and she can kind of tell you what one of her biggest surprises was.
So one of the biggest at the end of this, we have never reached the end. Well, I'll take you back to that slide where we thought we were unsustainably lean, and we used that as justification and assistance to convince everybody we needed help to modernize. And as we went through this, we are now to the point where the 1 penny for every dollar is about right for us. We may go up to 1.6, 1.7 based on, we still need to hire an estimator in-house to help us out with that, but estimators aren't cheap. But the 1 penny for a dollar is where we're going to be living for the foreseeable future. So with that, I guess we turn it over to Scott we'd be happy to entertain questions.
Thank you, Liz and Sarah. That was a great presentation. And now we're going to be able to field some questions from the audience, some that we've received. If you have questions and you'd like to tender them to our presenters, please take a moment, enter your question in the Ask a Question box at the bottom of your screen and press Submit. And in the time remaining, we'll field as many of these questions as possible. So, Liz and Sarah, I'm going to give you a question, and I'll let you decide which of you is appropriate to answer, if not both of you to speak to it. But the first one, I think, is one on everybody's mind, which is how did you sell everyone on the idea of modernizing? I would imagine, I think the question comes along with, I imagine that there were some pockets of resistance.
Yes, as you can imagine, there was more than pockets. One of the things our change order management consultant was, he helped us identify and work through the communication, and it was all about talking. There was no hidden agenda. It was like, this is what we're going to do. This is why we're going to do it. This is why we think it'll work. And having a SMEs in the room really was a key element in getting everybody to buy into it, that it was their solution, not senior management. So that was one of the things, and Sarah can talk about how the software and the hardware tools, I believe from my position where I was sitting, the hardware tools were an important key to that.
So from a technology perspective, there was definitely some concern across the team about technology. I don't have a smartphone in my personal life. I don't have a laptop in my personal life. I've never used this. I never had to use this. How am I going to do my job if I have to use these tools that I'm not comfortable with? And so our approach to kind of working through that was getting them the devices and giving them the options. So we hosted some sessions where we brought in, 3 or 4 different laptops, showed them the different features, showed them the different form factors, and got their ideas and input Obviously they had a lot of questions. What about, the ruggedness, or what about, my big fat thumbs? How am I going to do this? So, we were able to it wasn't just, looking at technology specs. We were able to talk to them and, accommodate some of those fears and insecurities they had about the tools, and make decisions about what we ultimately purchase based on their feedback. So again, just involving them in the process, and making them feel like they had a voice, and that this was we were doing this to help them, and that was really our goal. So I think that helps.
So good. Sarah, as an extension of that, another question kind of related, but more internal. And the question is this: were there significant integration of legacy systems required with adopting eBuilder?
So we did not do any integrations with legacy systems. We've actually been able to decommission 4 of our legacy systems because we've been able to build that functionality and those processes in eBuilder. And one of the integrations we are looking at is to our financial accounting system. We would like to integrate there because we would like to automate our invoicing processes and our contract creation processes. But in our initial implementation, we felt like, we had bitten off enough at that point with all the different modernization activities we were doing. So we did not do that as part of our initial implementation, but that's a piece that we're looking at for the future.
Good. Another question is that the 3-year master plan performed in eBuilder or some other internal form?
Currently, it's performed in Excel, but that's something that we're looking at doing in eBuilder in the future as well. I think, as Liz mentioned, that the capital planning and that whole concept of master planning and having, being able to get ahead of projects, that we just didn't have that luxury in the old world, kind of pre-modernization. So that was really kind of a focus point to stand up that new team and to kind of start creating these new processes, new tools like the master plan, and that's something we're interested in trying to get into eBuilder in the future as well.
A different question, I think more aligned to the way that you structured your staff in this process. The question was, you mentioned an in-house designer. Did you hire that designer onto your agency staff full-time, or was that person a third-party individual or on retainer or contract?
When we, way back at the beginning of this, we had in-house staff who were licensed architects and engineers whose job it was to design these smaller projects. As part of the evolution, we decided we didn't want that. We wanted our architects and engineers to not be ceiling drawings. We wanted them to be project managers. So we took away the need when we did their job descriptions, we made them project managers. The job order contracting program that we created, the contractors that come to the site to do the work as part of the procurement process, those contractors each own within their contract the requirement to bring a qualified licensed engineer and architect. So if in the bathroom renovation project I gave in this example, we have to submit sealed drawings to our Department of Labor and Industry to get an occupancy permit. We, DGS, and the agencies no longer have any in-house staff to do that. The design build contractor designs it, seals it, and then bids it, or builds it, I'm sorry.
Okay, another question. Did you have to obtain approval from state legislature to change statuses involved in your process requirement, or statutes, excuse me? Let me repeat that. Did you have to obtain approval from state legislature to change statutes involved in your process requirements?
No, we worked within the legal confinements of what we had. Our lawyers were in the room, although not initially. We wanted our SMEs to come up with processes that would work, that they wanted to work. And then once they were almost done, that's when we would bring the lawyers in to make sure that, especially with the electronic bidding, that was tricky because eBuilder had never been confronted with having to do live multiple prime bids. So the lawyers and e-builders spent a lot of quality time together, literally working through that process, and they did, and we have climbed that mountain. So now we have the Separations Act complied with. We have standardized forms within e-builder for domestic steel and prevailing wage rates and all of that. So we didn't have to change anything, which was really terrific. We had the e-builder gave us the flexibility to address and standardize forms and letters within e-builder to satisfy the lawyers. One of the things Sarah can talk about is how we do the electronic signatures and the app that we're working with e-builder on.
Yeah. So in terms of electronic signatures, that was another kind of sticky piece to work through for us. So in our initial implementation, we really kind of got by using electronic approvals, having, saying I approve, and then you put in your password to affirm that it's yourself. But with eBuilder's partnership with DocuSign, that we are looking at kind of expanding our electronic signature capabilities for getting signatures from our design professionals or our contractors that are, outside of our organization.
Good. Another question, do you have disadvantaged business, small business, or minority requirements with your contracts? And if so, how does that factor into your new timeline?
We do have a diversity in small business program, and it is a part of our contractor requirements to utilize small diverse businesses. So we've been able to create processes within eBuilder to have our prime contractors submit the required information about how they're utilizing, small diverse businesses, to ensure that that they are meeting their contract commitments, and we're utilizing different reporting features to stay on top of that and to capture that information. Does that answer
Excellent.
the question?
I believe so. Here's a more general one, though. That it's speaking to the topic. Is how specifically did you modernize? What methods or technology?
So I would say that in terms of our processes, we've modernized and leaned all of our processes. I think one of the most critical pieces of our project was really looking at detail at our processes and figuring out, do we need to do this step? Does this add value to our customer? Does this add value to the project? And so, getting into the weeds of those processes and figuring out, what we don't have to do has allowed us to modernize and streamline our processes. And the technology piece, we really weren't using technology before. So the laptops, the phones, the software, that was all new. That was all modernized compared to the paper and fax machines and, snail mail. That was the way that we were doing things before. And I think Liz has something to add.
So for a specific example, when we were doing change orders, and we had the guys in the field come in, and we had a big room, and we literally put sticky notes up, and we mapped out all of the 72 processes and the steps within the change order process to get to an approved change order. And they were empowered, and I don't mean to keep using that. Actually, I do mean to keep using that because it's an incredible, important part of this. The folks that were in that room who do change orders every day of their life were empowered to say, we don't need to send it up to the deputy to ask for permission. We don't need to send it up the chain of command for permission to add another PVC pipe or whatever. So they were literally taking down sticky notes to get to the 22 steps that we now take. And then eBuilder, who was in the room, literally drew the process map, and I'm sure I'm not getting the technology right, but they drew the process map that everybody can see every time we do a change order. So not only does it not take that long, The contractors, the agencies, the professionals, and DGS can all go into eBuilder and see exactly where on any given day whose box it's in, and there's a little blue circle around there. So we know exactly whose inbox it's sitting in, how long it's been there, and who to call to remind them to move that along. So as I said before and Sarah emphasized, empowerment and the as-built to create lean processes is incredibly important.
Excellent. Another question, how did the state procure the software? Bid, sole source, sole brand?
Sure. So eBuilder is available through the federal GSA Schedule 70. So that's the mechanism that we use. As a state, we can piggyback off of federal cooperative purchasing contracts.
So another question, how have your vendors responded?
When we, well, some better than others, surprisingly. When we had gotten to the point in the process path where eBuilder was ready to go, we literally had to convene our steering committee, and that's another thing we should probably mention, is that every Wednesday we had a senior management steering committee who would make decisions. So there was never an unanswered question throughout the 3 concurrent paths that lasted longer than a week before we resolved it. So when we were ready to go, one of the questions we had was like, oh my God, how are we literally going to do this? And we decided we were going to flip the projects in design first and allow construction to just keep going, and the projects that were in construction at the time would just be allowed to finish, because it was too much of a lift to ask our contracting vendors to, in the middle of construction while they're trying to finish a building, to learn eBuilder. So specifically in response to that question, our designers and contractors, who some of them were familiar with the electronic sort of eBuilder software or some other vendor software, they love it now. It's like a learning curve. It's like learning to drive. It's a little scary at first, but once you get into the car and start doing it, it really our contractors and design professionals love it. Our agencies, our client agencies, our primary customers, absolutely adore for a variety of reasons. The electronic bidding allows them within minutes to know how much this is going to cost them and if they need to contribute money. They also love it, our agencies, because they can see and I will say the agencies, the clients, and the designers, because there's this is an expenditure. We spend public money, so Governor Wolf, our governor, is a big advocate for transparency. So if any player in the eBuilder role in our projects can go in and see exactly what's going on and where the money is and the cost module and when things are going to get paid. So our subcontractors love it because they can go in and they get notification, even though they're not an eBuilder, about how much we just paid their prime contractor and when they can expect payment. So it was a little rough at the beginning because of its change, but we've coached ourselves and our vendors through that, and it's becoming more and more accepted. And I can't tell you the number of people who've come up and say, "Thank you for doing this. You give me some of my life back."
Excellent. Related question, what type of training was provided to vendors to utilize your eBid system? And also, were there any lessons learned in the process?
So the primary way that we trained our vendors was really with the designated person that they were working with on the public works team. So, for construction community, it was our internal construction manager or construction assistant project manager that worked with them in the context of the project, in the context of real things that were going on in the project, to teach them how to do those specific processes. We initially, envisioned, the kind of typical big classroom training. Everybody comes in and you train you on all these things. But, we kind of moved away from that because we felt it was a much more personal touch. It was much less daunting if we could, have our vendors work with our public works project team members that they were already working with and could learn things piecemeal as it was important or as it was needed to do that type of activity on the project. We also, kind of to support that internally, we also created training projects within our eBuilder system. So you could go in and you could practice different things on these training projects. You could upload files. You could kind of get the full flavor of eBuilder without fearing that you were going to mess up your real project. And we also did a lot of manuals and documentation, and that was not, that was how to use the system or how to do the process, but it also had all of the business context and business rationale in it about why are we doing this, and what is the intent of this step, or what is the intent of this activity. And so that helped our team internally be able to consistently communicate across the board about those steps and about how things were supposed to work.
Good. So another question, generally, how was eBuilder support once you went live?
So our support has been good. We utilize their help desk. We have an account manager as well, so no complaints here.
Good. Okay, rather detailed. Can your customers submit project or work order requests directly through eBuilder, or were you able to integrate your work order project systems to input customer requests for projects?
When they, directly, they can't do it in eBuilder yet. That's one of the capital planning modules that we're working with eBuilder in what I'll call phase 2. We are still, to get a project, we all start at the same place at the same time with a discussion in the Office of the Budget. We take their master plan for that year, and we go and we discuss with the Office of Budget who actually goes and floats the bonds for us. And the Governor's Office, so it's DGS, the Budget Office, and the Governor's Office decide how much PIP how much bond money we're going to get that year, and what projects should be awarded. So everybody gets the same notice at the same time, and we then, Public Works, will go in and create the project in eBuilder, which sends out a notification to the agencies that their projects are live in eBuilder.
And if I can just add on, except for creating or requesting new projects, a lot of our other processes our clients can initiate or can do in eBuilder. So we kind of talked around this, but I just want to clarify. So our eBuilder users include our internal team. It also includes our customers, our representatives from our client. It includes our design professional, and it includes our prime contractors. So all of those parties have access to eBuilder and are doing things in eBuilder, on their project. So if there's an approval that our client needs to take, or a question or a document they need to add, they can all do that in the system, and we work in the system together. So I think that's really been critical to our success too, is that we're all working in the same system together. This is not, an internal system that just our Department of General Services people have access to. This is, all of our key players on the project that are using the same system.
Another question, can you share lessons learned for agencies that are about to implement eBuilder into capital delivery process?
You first.
This is Sarah. So from a technology side, I think I can't stress enough the importance of really, really looking at your processes, really making sure that the steps that you're doing, the steps that you're going to build in your new system have value, and that you're not creating, excessive reviews or kind of excessive steps that aren't needed. I mean, this is a great opportunity to kind of step back and look at how you do work and make sure that you're setting things up the way you want to in the new system. Because one of the great thing about systems is they automate and they move things faster, but if you have chaos in your current processes, you're just going to increase the speed of that chaos. So really take this opportunity to step back and look at that, and use the drivers within your organization for change, and that the sponsorship that you have to get you this far to buy a new system, to just capitalize on all of that support and make other changes that you may want to make at the same time.
And just from a sponsor, I guess, you have to empower the people. I mean, it's scary, but you have to do it. And because a couple of times senior management would be like, oh my goodness, but you have to empower them. So there were people in construction that we kind of looked at and were like, oh my goodness, do we really want to trust them and allow them to negotiate and issue a change order? And essentially what we're doing is empowering them to change by themselves a Commonwealth contract. So they're in writing, identifying, negotiating, and approving change orders. Now we staged it so that the initial, there's two steps in our construction. So the direct field is an assistant project manager. They have up to $10,000. Then the next level I think is $25,000, and the regional managers who are out in the field have up to $100,000. So I can sit here and say, as a deputy, I haven't seen a change order in probably 3 months, and that's okay. I mean, but one of the lessons I would leave you with is it's as scary to give up the authority as it is to get it. And we worked and spent a lot of time coaching our folks that it's okay, you can do this, you can do this. We didn't spend as much time as we probably should with our senior management saying it'll be okay. It'll be okay. So that's an invaluable lesson.
We have time for one more question, and Liz, you partially, I think, answered this, but there's probably a little bit more. And the question is this, for both of you. If you were to do this again, how would you proceed differently?
Liz has to think about it. I'm tattling on her. How would we proceed differently?
If at all.
I think as we were getting projects moved into eBuilder, as we were kind of working on the training, and at that point in your process where the rubber hits the road and you're trying to kind of get stood up in this new model, these new processes, this new system, I tend to see that time in your project gets crunched, right? There's never enough time for testing. There's never enough time for training. There's never enough communication at that critical point. And so, I would probably have beefed that up a little bit more, try to figure out how we could do more of that, try to figure out if we had, maybe some other staff that could have jumped in and helped us. So that would be one piece that I would do differently.
I would echo that. We grossly underestimated the man hours we should have spent training our own people and then training the members of each project team. It works, it's great, but we were literally winging it for a while people we put them through training, but we didn't do right by them in the training aspect.
Good answers. Well, that's all the time we have for questions, folks. Please join me in thanking Liz O'Reilly and Sarah Schaefer for their presentations, as well as our sponsor, eBuilder. If you have any additional questions or comments that we didn't get to, please don't hesitate to click the Email Us button on the console and send us your questions. As you exit today's webinar, please take a couple of minutes to complete our survey. We strongly welcome your detailed comments. And please visit enr.com/webinars for the archive of this presentation, as well as information about other upcoming events. We hope you found this webinar to be a valuable experience, and thank you for joining us and investing your time with us today. Have a good day. Bye-bye.